Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Ni hao. Buenos dias. Ezeche. Kwaba. Welcome. What up, though? This is Cafe Melange session, week numero 25. Yeah, I think so. And stage one is building patience. Stage one for today, for this session, is building patience. Being still, being quiet, being honest. It is with that exercise and building of patience that we strengthen our foundation of knowledge of self. Knowledge of self can be understood in many different ways. The divine spirit, the divine presence, Atman, Nefesh, soul that exists within each of us, and our symbiotic relationship with the universe, harmony therein, all that, politics, economics, religiosity, and everything that exists in between. Another way of describing this is wisdom and righteousness, as the Buddha shares, and as the prophets and sages and ancestors share. Wisdom and righteousness, wisdom of our songs, of our stories, and our rituals, and righteousness within our ethical discipline. When we build our patience, we have a better awareness and a receptivity for what that wisdom and righteousness is, and how to strengthen our experience and our exercise of that wisdom and righteousness. That strengthens our interaction, our harmony, our well-being, our happiness within this universe. That's stage numero uno for ahora, for today, for this session. because we're getting into some nitty-gritty. So, patience. With some big opening of the patience, we get into stage numero dos, predators. So, stage numero dos, predators, predatoriness. We can understand, as I shared in previous joints, predators, predatoriness is when a sentient being or a being feeds upon the death, the life, the suffering, particularly the death and the suffering of another being, sentient being, particularly within this earthly realm. To be tangible, we can think about the lions and the zebras, wolves and deer, and additionally, animals that feed off other animals. That's predatoriness. That's a simplistic elementary school kind of example. So we can look at these examples to better understand the nature of predatoriness. What is the perceived necessity? What is the perceived favorability, the unfavorability, and how that affects us, how we apply that within our own lives, within our own walks. So, with a certain understanding of what predatoriness is, in general, we can better address, acknowledge, amend the predatoriness that exists within humanity. And there's a varying tendency of predatoriness within humanity. You can look at humanity's predatoriness towards other sentient beings, towards other animals. And additionally, and that sounds like a vegan soapbox, righto. That's part of it. But we can also look at humanity's predatoriness towards humanity. Human beings' predatoriness towards other human beings, feeding off others. Cannibalism, sure, but also through other less immediately fatalistic methodologies like slavery, like indebtedness, like sexual exploitation, and additionally, feeding off the suffering and the lives and the deaths of others. So some may say it's a dog-eat-dog world, rather eat than be eaten. There is a middle ground. There's a higher ground. There's a higher middle ground. How about that? But the consideration is being able to see that, being able to understand it, study it, and then be able to practice it. So in order to first see it, we can, in humanity that is, we can look at it in the greater animal realm. What are animals that are neither predatory nor prey? The phone is blowing up today. Neither predatory nor prey. I said it before. Elephants, the pachyderms, rhinos, hippos. And additionally, lions don't mess too tough with elephants and giraffe and hippopotami and rhinos. I guess that would be rhini if we were going to do the abbreviation. Why is that? Because elephants are big and strong, and lions know better. Giraffes have long legs and can break jaws. So just because elephants eat branches and leaves and everything else, they can still defend themselves and don't run away. So elephants, pachyderms, and additionally are examples of animals that are neither predatory nor prey. So when we see that within the animal realm, we can say, we at least see the evidence of it existing. It's a thing. It's possible. And then we can perceive how it can be applied and practiced individually, collectively, systemically, intergenerationally, civilizationally, within humanity or from humanity. So that's consideration. It's a thing, it exists. How can it exist amongst human beings or humanoids? One consideration is don't kill people, don't enslave people, don't impose debt upon individuals, and don't incur debt from individuals. Don't sexually exploit and unduly objectify people. Basically, be a nice person. That's not being predatory. You say, oh, wait a minute, that's very tough. Who's doing that? And that seems to be very susceptible towards being preyed upon. With further consideration, the plausibility and the preferability becomes increasingly evident. But it requires consideration, patience, being still, being quiet, and being honest. And then from that, being disciplined as we continue on. So, anyways, that's predatoriness and the propensity of non-predatoriness amongst human beings. So, that might seem nice and fuzzy. That might seem ideological, utopian. It is what it is. When we give it better thought and credence and dedication, it becomes increasingly actual and palpable. However, that in and of itself ain't the epitome, ain't the optimum, because we can look amongst the herbivores of the animal realm who are not necessarily predatory, even who are maybe prey, and look at the nature of competition and say, well, wait a minute now. Yeah, them rams with the horns and additional animals. Yeah, they don't kill other animals. They don't eat the carcasses of other animals. They don't hunt other animals. They're not predatory. But wait, they can do some nasty things towards each other. So how about that? There's a difference, first of all, between competition and predatoriness. But competition can be even increasingly severe and heinous than predatoriness. So even without the predatoriness, um, there's still that propensity of competition. So here's the consideration with humanity is that, or humanoids, is that um, in getting beyond the predatoriness, also getting beyond the competition, and that might seem increasingly implausible. How is that going to be? Because humanity has an increasing propensity for communication and cooperation and finding win-win solutions that are to the benefit of all members of the collective. So that is a consideration, going from predatoriness to non-predatoriness to even non-competitiveness. Um, we can talk about the existential angst that exists within predatoriness and additionally, but keep it brief at the moment because it's starting to pick up the volume it is here. Um, and we'll keep it at that. So that's stage numero dos. Then we get into stage numero tres for today, for this session. Stage numero tres is the game or running game. And running game can be understood as competition within humanity. It can be understood as manipulation, agency, agenda, and additional. It is the grift, uh, the lies, the deception, the manipulation that people employ towards other people in order to influence behavior, gain favorability, impose leverage within negotiations and interactions amongst other individuals. So, within recent experience here, actually in this very facility, I have a conversation with brethren, dear brethren, about how to tell when somebody's lying. We have a nice conversation about that. We talked about experience about how to tell when somebody's lying to us, and how to approach that. And one of the considerations that I share is that it's less of a question of if a person is lying. It's further a question of why a person is lying. Because in one way or another, there's deception, there's deceit, there's a lack of probity, a lack of 100% honesty within whatever we do, whether it's intentional, unintentional, whatever. There's a certain amount of deception. Sometimes it can be increasingly obvious and seemingly increasingly intentional, but it can be very difficult to call people out because it's less difficult to readily evidence. So we get into the games, running game. But like I said, rather than discerning if somebody is lying, it's a matter of why. So just presuming little trust towards others, um, and understanding what the motivations are of why people do what they do, why people say what they say, why people are what they are. And then rather than trying to impose one's own agenda and manipulation, understand that and find the nature of harmony with that. Because so often, so much in life, people are suffering, experiencing nasty teens that they are aware of and that they're not aware of, and are doing things because of that. And we can address the surface level uh, words and behavior for days and years and lifetimes without gaining much ground, without much efficacy. But when we understand better the nature of the suffering that prompts that surface level communication and behavior, then we are increasingly effective in strengthening cooperation, strengthening the harmony, strengthening the well-being with actually much less effort, with an increased amount of um, organic, natural harmony away, Tao. So um, that's an initial consideration when we talk about running game. Is just not that's not questioning is that person telling the truth or otherwise. Why is that person lying? Why is that person being deceptive? To whatever degree it's perceived, um, and doing our best to approach it accordingly. Also recognizing that each of us is running game. Each of us has an agenda. Each of us is an agent. Um, and most often we are agents of a number of different agencies. We are each a confluence of influences. So when we are doing our best to understand the agenda of others, it's also extremely beneficial for us to be honest and aware of our own agenda or agenda. And when we're honest about that, we see clearer uh, to recognize the agenda of others. Um, so, in that discipline of patience um, and wisdom and righteousness, and learning the suffering of others, and finding the mutually agreeable, mutually beneficial solutions that promotes the well-being of the aggregate of participants, we transcend through that tendency of manipulation towards effectively influence. Influence having an increasingly positive connotation of just recognizing that we have an effect on each other and we actually have an intentional effect. When we're honest about it and direct, then it's less manipulation and deceitful, and it's increasingly um, honest and agreeable, mutually agreeable. So we focus on influence. And when we consider it, every occupation, every occupational endeavor, every industry of human endeavor is predicated upon influence. Some degrees are readily evidenceable than others, but every job that a person does, a significant component of that job is influencing another individual, whether that's lawyers negotiating contracts, whether that's doctors providing advice and guidance for a patient in being healthy and well, healthy, um, whether that's an engineer identifying uh, effective technologies and mechanisms that attend to the behavior of others and the lifestyles of others. At some point, there's a sales job within it to maintain the occupation. And so that there's an influence of other people's behavior. And so there are industries that focus specifically on influence. The term is utilized for social media and additionally. Um, there are books that are written, there are courses that are given, there are degrees that are conferred based upon the efficacy of influence. Dollars are attached to those who exhibit increasing efficacy. Hierarchies, socioeconomic hierarchies, religious hierarchies are established and entrenched based upon um, perceived propensities of influence. Um, Gender roles are valued and devalued based upon this perception of influence, uh, equal pay, equal opportunity, and additionally, here's a consideration amidst this though. When we consider the vast aggregate ways in which human beings influence other human beings, I posit the consideration that one of the most influential phenomena that humanity experiences ever is a home cooked meal. In business and commerce, uh, there's the phrase of whining and dining a client, trying to get a favorable disposition amongst somebody who's considering a contract or a hire or whatever else. So, oh, let's wine them and dine them. Let's take them to the nice restaurant and let's take them to the nice hangout places and additionally uh, and impress them. Weaken their hesitations and additionally whining and dining. And so the increasingly influential firms are perceived as those who have the increased amount of budget to wine and dine clients. And so it becomes a contest of budget, who can wine and dine the best. That's a very rudimentary kind of reduction, but there's significant validity to that. All that being said, the limitation of that methodology is that anybody can wine and dine. If the only criteria is having the money, and if it's the wining and dining that's the actual influential factor, anybody can do that. It's just a matter of having the money. Um, and yeah, you might have to know the right restaurant, whatever else, but that's easy done. The significant influence for like entrenched decision makers, power brokers, and additionally is an invitation to a home, providing of hospitality, um, the introduction, the affirmation of the host's principles, way of life, trust, uh, constancy, and additionally. These are some of the experiences that are conferred within the experience of a home cooked meal, and that are exactly significantly absent from the wining and dining methodology. Um, and again, when you're dealing with expensive suits, uh, the wining and dine methodology may be considered as like the epitome. However, when you look at humanity through the ages and through today and continually, the big suits ain't making the big decisions ultimately. Um, the big decisions are being made by cats and other garb that have big suits on the payroll, one way or another, in a different type of currency. And those types of decision makers and those types of garbs ain't impressed by the whining and dining. Um, they're increasingly interested in the reliability of the host. And so again, it comes to the home cooked meal, um, family tradition, this, that, and the other. Regardless of what the tradition is, African, Asian, European, Mediterranean, Latino, Asian, Native, home cooked meal. And when we are better able to recognize that, then we are better able to recognize the extreme significance and importance and value that a wife and mother provides in providing a comfortable atmosphere and environment in the home cooked meal. That might sound like a very patronizing, chauvinistic kind of perspective, but it's an ironic kind of championing of femininity amidst feminism. Um, there's extreme truth within feminism, and the criticism that feminism points towards masculinity and chauvinism, but there's also limitations within it. It's significantly an imitation of masculinity, or excuse me, chauvinism, practiced towards chauvinism, um, rather than a championing of femininity. So, anyways, influence. True, enduring, long-term, harmonious, healthy influence. That being said, we go to stage number 4, and this is where we wrap it up for today, for ahora. Service. Within Western parlance, particularly within Christian tradition, there is this phrase or this principle of being saved, quote, saved. And within Eastern parlance, particularly within Hindu, Sikh, and Desi tradition, there is the term called seva. Being saved in the Western parlance connotes the experience of finding refuge in the benevolence of another. And seva, within Eastern parlance, connotes the experience of providing refuge for the benevolence of another. There is the consideration that those two terms, while seemingly positioned on two sides of an equation, are actually synonymous. And such is the nature of life. Being saved means doing seva. You can vice versa if you like. An important takeaway from that is compassion and cooperation. And being mindful in working and living and playing and resting and building and continuing the well-being and the happiness that we strive to experience in this life. That's a lot of words, but There's something to that. What I also share is that emphasis on mindfulness from the patience through the knowledge of self and the wisdom and righteousness. We have a foundation to exercise our talents. Each of us has talent to train, to develop our skills, and to practice our talents and our skills towards the service of others. Seva and save. Service. Mindfulness is a continual part of this. Honesty, compassion, and modesty are significant guidelines in this mindfulness. And when we are challenged with hostilities, with lies and deceptions, with greed, it's a matter of tempering our response, diving into our bank of patience, and responding with honesty and compassion and modesty. Each of us is like a telepathic Hulk where we have tremendous mental capabilities and ramifications, and even just our thoughts. Our actions can be readily evidenced. The consequences of our actions can be evidenced. The consequences of our words can be evidenced. It can be less readily evidentiary, the effects of our thoughts. But they're there, and they're beyond our awareness. And so it behooves us, it's very beneficial for us to cultivate a discipline of mindfulness, of patience, that when we are challenged with frustrations and hostilities, to calm ourselves and respond with, again, honesty, compassion, and modesty. To find calm, find the calm, trust in the calm, and be in harmony with the calm. When we're able to do that, that is health, that is wellness. That is it. So, anyways, it's a lot of generalities. There's specifics within that as well. Um, but I keep it at that. Um, there's a consideration. That's a wrap for this joint. Now we're in the afterwards. Um, from the previous sessions, there are some thoughts. In the previous joint, I shared something about human civilization, like the sequence of human civilization, talking about East and West, the middle ground, native, um, the establishment of hierarchies within East and West, and then the emergence of prophetic figures, enlightened figures that turn the tables on its head and revolutionize societies, kingdoms, and empires. And then in the middle ground, another movement of religiosity and awakening and guidance emerges. One thing that I abstain from mentioning during that is two components: China and Greece. And it's interesting to see how Greece emerges in the West uh, amidst the sequence of Judaism and Christianity and Islam. And then in the East, it's interesting to observe how, amidst the emergence of Hinduism and Buddhism, and Jainism, and Sikhism, additionally, how Chinese religiosity some people refer to it as philosophy, but the I Ching, Lao Tzu, Confucius emerge amidst that as a confluence, much like within the West, Greece with Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, um, emerges as an effective confluence in civilizational um, development in the West. Same thing in the East with the Chinese tradition. Um, as a confluence of human civilization developed in the East. So we are progressing in humanity in a confluence of these paradigms. An emerging, evolving paradigm of pluralism that can be readily evidenced in Sikh tradition, then Baha'i tradition, and continuing through today within globalization, however you want to call that. The notion of the world citizen. It's an ancient idea, but it's been increasing ground, particularly as we've run out of ground to map and to claim and to discard as scapegoats. And so it requires increased reconciliation. And nations, corporations, religions, and additionally are vying for effective methodologies of pluralism, leadership, and management administration within pluralism amongst pluralistic constituencies. Um, and maintaining effective levels of productivity, efficiency, um, and sustainability amidst this pluralism. So, foundation of this, a fundamental part of this is understanding the track record, and then also again knowledge of self, wisdom and the righteousness that governs the way. So that governs semicolon the way thou. That being said, that's it. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, zaijian, adios, te chabris, siempre nasa, muy que le love and peace.